Hi there, welcome to Killian's Kitchen. I'm going to show you how to do bread. This is a sourdough bread. It's an amazing recipe. A friend of mine, Simon Jones, came up with this recipe. So thank you, Simon. It is a brilliant recipe. It has never failed me. Even when I screw something up along the way, this bread turns out brilliantly every single time. Let's get started and see what has to happen. It's now 11 a.m. We start the process now, and by this time tomorrow the bread will be done and baked. And through this process it takes very little effort. You just got to keep tending to it. Okay, so we've got to start with a starter. This is a sourdough starter. I got this from my friend Simon Jones. It's a great starter. I suggest you either make your own starter to begin with, or just find a friend who's got a starter that's been around and is proven, and just grab a little bit of that and put it in your fridge, and this thing just keeps living in the fridge. And every time you make bread, you add stuff to it. And I'll show you right now. This is how we start the process. This is my starter. I've got, as you can see, about that much of it in there. And we are going to open that up. And the first thing to do is add half a cup of water. And we're going to mix that up a bit. And the starter basically is just flour and water, but there's a yeast component to it that is natural and has been alive in this culture for as long as the starter's been around, I think years. But some places have starters that go back decades, and they just keep on feeding and keeping it alive. It's a living thing. It's so cool. Okay, once that's mixed in, we're going to add flour. We're going to do 3/4 of a cup and use bread flour, unbleached, regular old bread flour. So that's a half, and that's a quarter, making 3/4 of bread flour. Mix that together, and once that's mixed in, it should be all gooey and not liquidy. And now what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit here outside, room temperature, covered. I'm going to just cover it with some cellophane. Just close it up a bit. And this is going to sit there for 8 hours, and it's going to rise. And it should be up to close to the top after 8 hours. So let's check back in 8 hours. Okay, so we've been sitting with the starter here for 8 hours now, and look how it has crested up. When we added it this morning, it was down here, and it's right up there, so it's beautiful. Now we're going to put 3/4 of a cup into this mixing bowl. It's really gooey, so you got to get a spoon in there. So we've got 3/4 of a cup in there now. So this will go back in the fridge, and this is our starter, and you use it for next time, and it just keeps living in your fridge. It's a wonderful thing. Now to this we're going to add 1 3/4 cups of water. Better to use warm water. That's a cup. That's a half. And that's about 1 3/4. And we're going to give this a mix, kind of mixed in there before we add the flour. Don't feel like you have to completely have it dissolved, as long as it's for the most part a nice sludgy mess. And we're going to add flour. As I said earlier, unbleached bread flour is the best for this. And we're going to add 4 1/4 of these. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll do a smidgen as a quarter. And now we're going to go ahead and mix this. As you can see, it gets really quite gooey very quickly. It looks good. You don't want it watery at all. And if you had a bread machine, you'd be doing this with a machine, but I'm like old school. Alright, so once you have a relatively solid glump of wet dough in there like that, everything seems to have mixed together, we're going to leave that standing there for 30 minutes and just cover it with a tea towel. Just loosely cover it like that, and we'll check back in 30 minutes. Alright, it's been about half an hour, 30 minutes, and I'm going to open this up, and you can see it's already started getting some holding in there. We are now going to add 3½ teaspoons of salt in there. 1, 2, 3½ What I'm going to do now is mix this in there. You can see how tight that is, and gooey and doughy, and all the brilliance that bread is. Okay, now the idea with this, we're going to be coming back to this every 30 minutes now for the next 3 hours, or maybe even 4 hours, and manhandling this bread. What the idea is you can see it's a lump, and you put your fingers down and then you pull it from one side and then fold it over. Turn it a bit, put your fingers down, pull it and fold it over, and keep on doing that until you will start feeling a tension building up in this dough. It'll start getting a bit tighter. And once you feel that tightness, then it's time to leave it for another 30 minutes. And we're going to come back to this again and again tonight over the course of 3 or 4 hours. And just keep it covered in between, and we'll check back in 30 minutes. So it's been about another 30 minutes, and we're going to take a look. You should see some liquid in the dough. As you can see, it's quite soft and liquidy, mushy. And now every time you do this for the next 3 hours, we just pull out and fold in like that. And the softness that you see right now is going to start getting harder, and it's just going to start getting more holding to it. And you can see now it starts to get more solid and starts to get more form to it, and that's exactly what you want. And every time we do this now for the next 3 or 4 hours, it's going to be like this until I start finding that there's not much liquid every time I go back, and it just is easier to get it to a point where it's got this form to it, this holding to it. Okay, so it's been almost 4 hours, and so now rip that off. Look at that, no liquid or water or anything there. And we're going to flip this over. What I've done here is I've taken a board and lightly floured it. Pop that on there, and now we're going to do the same thing we were doing in there, which is just pulling and folding. Only now you're getting, in fact, I'm going to lightly flour my hands. So now you're getting a bit of flour in there. And just keep working this, and again it'll start building more tension the more you do it. And now it's building a really nice surface tension there, and I think we're about ready. And then what we're going to do is flip it over like that, and then pat it down a bit. Then we're going to take, I have a colander with just a tea towel in it that I've floured lightly here, and I'm going to take this and put it this side up in there, so that the plated side is now facing the top. Good idea to use a colander because it aerates it a little bit. And there it is. I'm going to cover the tea towel over that, and we're going to pop this in the fridge overnight, and we'll see you in the morning. Okay, it's the next day, and I've taken the dough out of the fridge, and we're going to open that up and take a look. And you might be surprised that it hasn't really risen. Don't worry about that, it will. Now we're going to take a piece of parchment paper, or wax paper as you might like to call it, and you want to use the wax side up, and we're going to take the bread, carefully lift it out of there, out of the tea towel, and we're going to turn it over onto the paper in the middle. Next thing is we're going to take a knife and we're going to cut 3 or 4 deep lines into the dough, and you'll see why later. I'll do 4. Alright, and we're ready to go. Now I've had the oven on 550 and I've got a Dutch oven in there. So we're going to lower now the bread into the Dutch oven, and that is already preheated at 550. So just open that up. So now we take the parchment paper, lift it gently on both sides, and gently lower it into this Dutch oven. Just like that. And now we're going to pop it in there. We're going to lower the heat now to 430, and we're going to check back in half an hour. Okay, it's been about half an hour. Let's take a look. Now be careful, this is already hot, so you want to use your cloth or something. And oh yeah, that's done. Now for the last step, I'm going to leave the lid off, close it back up, and leave it to brown for about 5 minutes. Okay, it's been browning for probably closer to 10, maybe even a few more minutes, and I think it's done. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, look at that. Perfect, brilliant. Now let's get it up here, and what you can do is just take the it's the beauty of using this paper, parchment paper. Even though it's just come out of a hot oven, you can just grab it with your hands. It's not going to burn you. And get rid of that, and voila! Look at that baby. It's a beast indeed. Beautiful, perfect. We're going to let it cool down a bit, and then we're going to have a bite. Alright, let's give it a test drive. I'll pop some super awesome Spanish olive oil in there, a couple of grains of salt, and let's check it. This is beyond ridiculous. I promise you, you're going to be amazed at how well this bread turns out. It is super crispy on the outside. The crust is amazingly crispy and really nice and soft on the inside. Beautiful, delicate flavor, and amazing bread. I just want to thank Simon Jones for this amazing recipe. So go and get yourself some bread on, and I'll catch you on the next one.